And a good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Plant and Water. I'm Dennis Washington, Richard Hart, pulpit minister here at Deerfoot Church of Christ. Richard, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm here. I'll tell you, we've had some crazy things happening today. Just go, go, go.
Does it feel like we're less than a week before Christmas and trying to cram it all done here before?
We have one more gift to wrap, and if the kids we're helping Santa.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's the truth.
We're almost ready.
It is. It is. And you look forward to kind of some family time and slowing down, but it seems like there's a lot of work that has to happen before that can take place.
Yeah. And I was telling Dennis before, I got a Christmas present early. It was bed rails for the back of my truck between my camper shell. Well, I took the camper shell off yesterday to take it off and put it on there. Well, I broke the camper shell. So
always happens.
Trying to fix the camper shell before we get it on, before we go out of town. And,
right.
Well, all right, here you go.
You try to do something, and it just, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Like, of course.
Well, let's so you can get back to fixing your camper shell.
No, we're good.
Let's talk a little bit. I wanted to kind of spend a few minutes today talking about your sermon this past Sunday, because and if you've been following the podcast, or maybe this is your first time if you haven't been, you know that our theme this year has been Iron Sharpens Iron.
Yeah.
And you used this past Sunday to kind of, in essence, almost summarize that theme for the year as we get ready to draw the year to a close here, and the idea of sharpening each other.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your thought process with selecting that.
Well, yeah, we've been looking at Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. And so we actually allowed this one, like you said, to sum up the whole focus this year. How do you sharpen someone? And it almost seemed like that should have been the focus maybe for the first lesson for it. But we've focused all year on being as strong as iron so that we can sharpen each other. And so really, that's, I guess, been the mindset behind it, and as to why this really needed to be there as the final lesson. And so I've enjoyed the journey this year. I've enjoyed the process of becoming as strong as iron, so that we are strong in the Lord and the strength of His might. We wear that full gospel armor, and the part of our gospel armor that doesn't cover us is our back. God covers our back through prayer, and so we have focused on that. And so now we're looking at what does it mean, and how do I go about sharpening my brother, because that's a challenging process. It's going to be challenging for the sharpener. It's also going to be challenging for the person being sharpened. Who has that right, or who has that ability to sharpen someone else? How do we recognize if someone is dull, if they've grown dull, if they're in need of being sharp? If they're blunt, do they know it? Do they recognize it?
Yeah.
First and foremost. And so this question of how do you do it, really, we could have spent more than one sermon on it.
It's not an easy answer. And one of the things that when I was listening to you talk about this Sunday, the idea of, as you just brought out, the idea of being blunt, how to recognize if someone's blunt, but then also when you start to think through the process, okay, I want to go from observing someone who I think needs help sharpening to actually helping them, sharpen them. But as you pointed out, you can't be a dull blade to begin with.
Right.
And if you're dull and try to help someone by sharpening them, you could end up doing more damage.
Exactly.
That's a visual when I start to think about it, because, it kind of goes back to saying we need to be prepared for those opportunities as they come before us to be able to help other people. But, and also the visual of, like in an airplane, they tell you put your mask on first before you help, a child, because you've got to be prepared in order to help other people. And I guess as a firefighter, you know that value of that too. You've got to have your oxygen mask.
Prepared first.
Yeah, you're prepared before you go into the fire. So
that's with your training. That's with your SCBA. Your oxygen, making sure your tank is on. I mean, I did that one time. Didn't make sure, and that was a very horrible situation because I wasn't prepared myself to go into a fire, and I almost hurt myself and caused someone else to have to come in and, risk themselves to find me. And so that was you're exactly right. We have to make sure that we are being sharpened by God. And that's why we chose Galatians 6, verses 1 through 5, to provide the text for how we sharpen each other. Because he says, brothers, if anyone is caught in a trespass, you who are spiritual must restore a brother in the spirit of gentleness. The idea of sharpening a blade, for instance, that's grown dull, is you're restoring that blade. It's funny, during the process of working on my camper shell in the parking lot here, I didn't have any of my tools because they're at the house, and so I whipped out my pocket knife and I used the pocket knife for something that I probably shouldn't have used it for, trying to scrape some paint off of something where I normally would have used sandpaper. Right. Didn't have it, so I used the blade to sit there and just, and I'm going, well, I'm ruining the blade on this knife, and so what do I need? I need my sharpener. Yeah. I need something to do that. And actually, what's interesting is just a few moments, I started to, before the show, I'm sitting there, I'm sharpening my knife. Well, if you look in, you can't really tell in the thing, but you're going to see a whole lot of pieces of metal, little fragments of metal as I went to sharpen this blade. You hear it. Of course, some of you would be like, why did you go the other way? But just to make that noise, you hear it. Right. It's a violin, right? No. Just so you hear, as that sharpening process is being done, metal is being lost. And so, think about the metal. Think about the person that's being sharpened. They're going to have to lose some of themselves, and maybe some of the things that they've been doing is they're a tool for God, and maybe they've been used in the wrong way. They need to be used for God. Maybe they've been used for Satan, and they have grown dull. Their heart has grown dull. Their heart has grown callous because they've been doing things that are inappropriate or doing things that are sinful. Right. That is causing the dullness, and it has to be wiped away. It has to be sharpened away, and that's going to be a challenging process. And so it's also going to affect the sharpener. If you actually look at this used to be very, it has diamond, little pieces on there, and it used to be pretty solid. But I've used it so much that it's wearing away at the sharpener, and so the sharpener is going to possibly grow dull. The person being sharpened, as they get sharpened, you're going to be giving of yourself. That means you're going to be using your time. As you go to sharpen someone, try to encourage them. They may look at you and say, well, I don't need to be sharpened. Right. And they might retaliate, or they might respond back. You may lie straight to your face. Yeah. These are going to be challenging things that we're going through, but we have been given the scriptures to show us how we go about it. You who are spiritual, restore a brother in a spirit of gentleness. Well, I think it's interesting. We don't just have chapters and verses and say, well, that was the plan. That's Galatians 6:1. But in Galatians 5:22 and 23, just 5 and 6 verses before, we're told that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Right. Against such things there is no law. So he tells us who is spiritual, those who have got these qualities within their life. Right. Then you go, 2 verses before that, 18 and, 2, 3, 4 verses before, you look at the works of the flesh that are evident. And, you got some pretty disturbing things within that list. Yeah. So when he says, if any of you are caught in a trespass, he's already mentioned the list of the trespasses. So if you're caught in these things, then you who are spiritual, who are in the list of those who are spiritual, if you have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, if you have those things, you're the person that can come and strive to help someone who's caught in those trespasses that have been listed. So that's what's important, first and foremost. It's not, well, I feel spiritual. Yeah. I feel like I'm a good person, or I feel like I can fix this person, and I can sharpen them, and I can just you're going to do more damage. You're missing one of the spirits, the fruits of the Spirit, with that idea in mind that you're going to come in and just fix someone. And I guess maybe that's part of our culture these days, but I think a lot of men
maybe even more so than women, but a lot of men tend to feel like they're the fixers. I know I've kind of have always felt that way, that I like this fix-it mentality. If it's broke, let's go fix it and then move on to the next project.
But in the same way.
Yeah.
Hence taking a camper shell off by myself, thinking I can fix a water leak that then turned out I broke with the water leak. That was horrible. Then the camper shell broke. Oh, great. So I go to fix one little tiny thing.
And it becomes this.
And another thing is broken. Another thing is broken. Before you know it, it takes all your time.
Right.
Yeah, so we've got to be careful as we're going about it and realizing that we're not the fixer. God is.
Yeah.
It's His Word.
Yeah.
And so may we come to someone and say, hey, I'm here because I'm your brother. I'm here because God has blessed me to be a part of the kingdom. He's blessed you to be a part of the kingdom in the situation of trying to restore a brother in a spirit of gentleness. Right. Recognizing that means God added me to His church. I didn't add me to His church. This is God's righteousness, not self-righteousness.
Right.
And so we're going to come, maybe not with accusation, but with questions.
Yeah.
Hey, I noticed something. I noticed something, maybe seemed a little off. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Is everything okay?
That's probably a good place to start the conversation.
Yeah.
Is not come in and accuse them, say, I know you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
But start in, hey, is everything okay?
Oh, I'd say not only is it a good place to start, but I'd say it's the only place to start. You've got to go to someone before they've done wrong. If you start noticing just telltale signs of maybe someone who's very talkative is just very reserved and is withdrawing themselves, and you know it, you say, hey, is there anything I can pray for you for today?
Yeah.
Is there anything that I can do? Hey, let's go get some coffee. Let's go have some time, to where maybe they'd be willing to confide in you.
Yeah.
Or maybe you recognize it and you come to them before they ever do something. And then when they go to do it, you go to them again. And you say, hey, you remember when I came to you that time? You know I got your back. You know I'm here for you.
Right.
So the thing is, if you do that beforehand, they're going to be more apt to listen to you because they see that you showed love. You showed that you were patient. You showed that you were kind because you took time out of your day. They already saw that you bore the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And so that's the person who's spiritual. And actually, what's interesting is we are actually going through an amazing process in our discussion that God did for Cain. God did this for Cain. In Genesis chapter 4, if you ever just looked at what, this is going off of what the sermon was on Sunday, but it applies so very well. We understand that Cain, in the process of time, Cain and Abel came and brought gifts and sacrifices to God. Well, God accepted Abel's, but He didn't accept Cain's. Well, Cain's countenance fell. We understand he was angry. Verse 5, for Cain and his offering, just Genesis 4, verse 5, he had no regard. So Cain was very angry and his face fell. And notice it says, the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why has your face fallen? Isn't that amazing? God doesn't say, get over it.
Yeah. Or
like, what's your, or he doesn't
what's
just,
your problem?
What's your problem?
Yeah.
He doesn't say, you knew better.
Right.
He comes and says two questions. Why are you angry? Why has your face fallen? Why has your countenance fallen? What seems to be the problem?
Yeah.
God did that. So if God did that, I'd say it's a pretty good choice of
it's a good example of how
a way of going about conflict.
Yeah.
Way of going about seeking to sharpen someone. So then the Lord, he asks these questions. Then he goes and gives advice. Verse 7. So he can only give the advice because he's asked these questions. He's established the ability to do this. If you do well, will you not be accepted? Wow. He gives advice in the form of a question. And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. He provides two avenues. He provides a choice for Cain. You can choose to rule over this sin,
right,
or you can choose to give in to this sin. Right? That's in essence what he's saying.
And that's true. I mean, for all of us.
Well, it's what God did for Adam and Eve by providing the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. He provided a choice for Cain's parents.
Yeah.
And so could God have made it to where they never ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Sure, he could have, but he didn't. Why? Because he wanted them to have a choice. Could God have come in and just said, hey, sin is crouching at the door and its desire is for you, but you must rule over it? He could have just said, I know what you're about to do. I know you're plotting to kill your brother, and I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
God doesn't stop Cain. God comes to Cain and gives him these choice. Look at what's on the line.
Yeah.
Abel's life.
Right.
God didn't stop Cain. Then, verse 8, Cain spoke to Abel his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. And sounds like someone else is calling in.
It's God calling.
Like, well, hey, no, it's my wife. She has a question and answer.
That's what it is.
And so we'll find that one later. I should have asked a question. I'll make sure I ask a question for him. Cain spoke to Abel his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Now, God has already come to him. He already approached him with a question here. And he's saying, hey, you've got a choice. Sin is crouching at the door. Its desires for you. You must rule over it. Right? He gives him this option. Then, verse 9, then the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel your brother? So now God comes and confronts him. God confronts him first and foremost.
Right.
After he has come to him with these questions.
Yeah.
When he saw that his countenance had fallen, he came to him. So when we recognize somebody is just maybe growing a little dull, they're not completely, gone completely blunt. Something's off.
Yeah.
Hey, I noticed something.
Right.
What's going on? Why has your countenance changed?
Right.
Then he comes to him and says, he gives him that advice to sin's crouching at the door. Then he comes and confronts him because when he chose not to follow God's advice, God confronts him. But he confronts him after the fact.
Right.
After he'd already come to him before he did something wrong.
Right.
So I think that's very powerful for you and I. If we're going to sharpen someone, God is the greatest example for us here because what does Cain respond? How does he respond? Then the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel your brother? He said, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Now, this is important because he's talking to God and says, I don't know.
Even though he did know.
And he did know. If there's anyone who knew where Abel was, it was Cain. Because he knew the scene of the crime.
Right.
He knew the scene of the crime. He knew, because notice God actually says, and the Lord said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. God knew he was in the ground.
Yeah.
Cain knew he was in the ground. He buried him.
Right.
So Cain most likely had buried him.
Sure.
So Cain knew exactly the spot. God knew the spot. God could have said, I know what you did.
Right. He could have.
He could have come and just land blasted him. How could you? How dare you? And he could have let him have it. But look at what he did. He came and said, where is your brother Abel? He gave him another opportunity to be honest with God. He gave him an opportunity to be honest too, and he wasn't. So God, if there's anyone who could have said, I know what you did, it was God, because he was omnipotent.
Right. Right.
We are not the ones that, oftentimes we're going to go to someone, you always do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew you were going to do it. Told you so. See, no.
Yeah,
we come again with a question. You don't ever see a statement from God here. You see questions.
It's true. All of his discussions begin with questions.
With a question.
Even though we knew the answer to the question.
Yeah. Where's Abel, your brother? It's kind of like Moses when it comes to when he's receiving the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
He comes down and he hears the dancing and he sees the commotion going on. And he throws the tablets down and he goes and he takes that golden calf and he grinds it down and he melts it and puts it in the water and makes them drink it.
Yeah.
Or no, he
Right.
doesn't melt it. He ground it down, put it in the water in the powder, and made them drink it. That was powerful. Then he asks Aaron, his brother, what happened?
Yeah.
What have you done?
Right.
He asks a question
Yeah.
to Aaron.
Yeah.
He knows what happened.
Well, sure.
He could have said, I can't believe you did this. He said, what have you done? What has taken place?
Yeah.
And he said, it was the people. They gave me the gold, and I threw it in the fire, and a calf jumped out. When given the question, he buried himself practically by lying to Moses. Here, God did the same thing. He asked a question. I think that's important. When we're going to sharpen someone, be asking questions. Go with questions. Do not go with accusations.
Absolutely.
And so that's key. I think it was important. Cain lies to God. This is the third lie that is recorded within Scripture. Mm-hmm. It's the third lie that has been recorded. The first one was from his father to his mother, most likely, because Eve is the one that says, when she tells Satan of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, she says, "You shall not eat. From the day you eat of it, you will surely die." That's Genesis 2:17.
Right.
But she added one line: "Neither shall you touch it, lest you die." I don't believe she added it. I believe it was Adam who added it. And so he says, "You will not surely die." That's the second lie.
Yeah.
Second lie. So I believe the first lie was from good intentions from Adam. Most likely he's saying, just don't even touch it. Don't go near it.
Right.
Well, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, to delight to the eyes, to desire to make one wise, she took of its fruit.
Yeah. Right.
Well, she believed that it was the command of God not to touch it.
Right.
That the moment you touch it, like an electric fence or something,
Yeah.
you go to touch it,
Yeah.
you drop dead.
Right.
Well, that shows that it was a lie out of good intention, that Satan could use a lie out of good intention to then use his lie out of evil intention.
Right.
And
it snowballs.
It snowballs.
Starts
innocent.
Right.
Started innocent.
Right.
So you grab hold of it, and when she touches it, well, I didn't die. She goes to eat it. She didn't die immediately. So that's when she gave to her husband who was with her, and he ate.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So you see how Satan can use even good intentioned lies.
Sure.
To, like little white lies that we call, to develop doubt.
Right.
To establish doubt, to then cause that his intentional lie, his evil intention of a lie. What kind of lie did Cain lie to God here? He says, "I don't know." This is an evil intention lie to cover up. So he's not borrowed the lie from his father. This is not a good intention lie. This is an evil intention lie. He is following his father, the devil here, the father of lies.
Yeah.
So Cain has followed Satan because it said sin is crouching at the door and its desire is for you. So he followed Satan to murder his brother, and he followed Satan to keep that evil going in lying in this way. And so we see that if we're not going to sharpen each other, that we might grow dull because we might start following Satan and recognize that because of this, man, we're going to go down a path, this horrible rabbit hole that there may be no coming back from.
So in essence, what you're saying here is the idea that if we don't try to help other people and sharpen them, it may hurt us in the long run.
It'll hurt us. It'll hurt them.
It'll hurt them too.
So
but it also hurts us as well by not trying to properly help someone else. Then we can become dull just by not actively trying to sharpen someone else. We lose our sharpness. It's not like, you can take that knife and you can sharpen it and you can put it in a box somewhere and not use it, and it'll stay sharp. But I guess it could become dull.
But it's just been on display.
Yeah, it's been on display. It's not doing any good to anyone.
Yeah.
So it's the idea here that even if you're not trying to sharpen someone else, if you're doing things, you're going to become dull too if you're not getting resharpened and then turning around and sharpening other people.
That's a great point.
And you talked too, and that kind of the other point that I loved what you made Sunday was about the idea of watching yourself, and I think that ties in here too. In the idea that you can go and try to help other people, but if you don't kind of watch your own self and do this properly, then you can get yourself in trouble as well.
Yeah, we got to keep watch on ourselves. It's the idea it says, you who are spiritual, restore a brother in a spirit of gentleness, keeping watch over yourselves, lest you too be tempted. So realize Satan is alive and well, and he's going to tempt us, just like he tempted Cain.
Yeah.
But as we're striving to be like God and going to be my brother's keeper, God was willing to be Cain's keeper here.
Yeah.
You think about it. Are we
That's a great
willing?
point.
Are we willing to be our brother's keeper, even if our brother has turned into Cain? And the idea is, are we willing to go and strive to sharpen them? But we got to keep watch on ourselves. The way you can do that is by asking questions. Come with questions. Don't
like
come
the
with
way God did it.
accusations.
Yeah.
Do it. I mean, God is the one that's showing. He showed the example. He showed the pattern, and the fact that he continued. I think this merits what you're talking about. Verse 10, the Lord said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand." So this is the idea. It's not that we follow this so much that we then curse our brother. No, we've got to go and strive to sharpen them, because God's curse still stands. They will experience judgment from God if we're not willing to stand up and speak for God. Go to them as a shepherd would, go to them as a brother would, to try to encourage them. And so recognizing that there's a punishment for unforgiven sin, and this world wants to say that there's no punishment, and how dare you for even broaching this subject.
When you said that, it made me think of one thing is, we talked a lot about, we want to go to heaven. We want to take as many people there with us as we can. So I've always, in my mind, used that as the concept of spreading the gospel to people that have never heard it before.
Right.
But it also applies to people that have fallen back into sin. I want them to go to heaven too.
Yeah.
And if I really want them to go to heaven, then I'm going to go try to restore them the way God wants me to.
Oh yeah, because there is a fearful expectation of judgment. It's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Do we believe that? If we believe that, we will be going and speaking to individuals that we're seeing maybe something's not right. There's a countenance that's fallen. I want to go to them. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
That's where God went to them.
That's fantastic.
Before they ever get to the point of being so far removed from God. But even here, Cain recognized this to be a punishment. He says, "Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I have been hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. Whoever finds me will kill me." Then the Lord said, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold." You see, for him lying to God, I don't know where he is. God could have dropped Cain dead right there for lying to God, to his face.
Yeah.
Well, Ananias and Sapphira lied to the Spirit.
Yeah. And
in Acts 5, and they dropped dead.
Yeah.
Cain could have dropped dead, but God actually protected Cain here. Continued to show this patience toward Cain.
Yeah.
I mean, recognizing the law had not been established yet. And actually, we handled this on Sunday night when we were asking, why was this a sin that Cain killed Abel? Because the law hadn't been established. The fact that God actually came and spoke to him, sin is crouching at the door, its desire is for you, you must rule over it, showed that this was a sin. And the fact that when he came to him and says, "What have you done?" and he's cursed for this, he's given a punishment for this, that shows that the sin was the murder.
Yeah. Right.
So we have the answer. But now, so the thing is, though, this is the beginning of time. And God is establishing the patience that he had for Cain. Are we willing to have patience with someone who lies to our face when we go to strive to encourage them?
Easier said than done.
Yeah. Are we willing to, when they go and they do what we try to encourage them and warn them about, do we go and say, "I told you so," or do we go and say, "I'm here"?
Yeah.
Time and time again, do we try to protect them, to try to encourage them? This is incredible what this is showing. And so this is the process, continuing to go to them and strive to be that.
It is. It's a great example. I love how you brought that out. In our remaining few minutes, wanted to get to our Bible question of the week.
Which applies exactly
Yeah.
to what we're talking
Go
about.
ahead.
Well, the question was asked: are there any passages that would help with someone who is who's caught in substance abuse? And so with that, I thought, well, this is great. How can you use the Bible to help someone in addiction?
Right.
And so that's the question, I would say.
Yeah.
And so my immediate response was Psalm 71, 1 through 3. And I've used this before with, when I was a youth minister, I was 20 years old. I just turned 20 when I first became a youth minister. And we had a young lady who was court-ordered to be placed in our youth group. Her grandmother attended with us, and so I never met her before until she shows up in the Bible class.
Wow.
And I thought, well, hey, what's your name? And and she's like, well, I'm so-and-so. And she said, I'll just say so-and-so. She said, I'm here because the court made me. And I went, oh, well, okay. Well, why? She says, I'm addicted to meth. And I went, oh, okay. Right. She's like, well, how long? She's like, I've been 5 hours clean. And she's like, I've been 5 hours clean.
Yeah.
And
right.
I went, wow. She asked me, how do I get through this? And I was thankful that she was court ordered to be in our youth group. I had an opportunity right there, and I took her to Psalm 71, 1 through 3. And so that's why it was immediately on my mind.
Sure.
In you, O Lord, I put my trust. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness and cause me to escape. Incline your ear to me and save me. Be my strong refuge to which I may resort continually. You've given the commandment to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. This is a psalm of David. And David is saying, he's saying, Lord, I put my trust in you. Well, he has to say this because he has put his trust in something else. He put his trust in a woman.
Yeah.
Or even in his own ability, where he should have been at work. He should have. He was standing on the roof of his house, and he looks down, and he's higher than any other house in the area. And he looks down, and he sees Bathsheba, who's bathing on the roof. He shouldn't have been there to begin with.
Right.
And so, if anyone could have understood addiction within Scripture, it was David.
Yeah.
So this is a prayer of David, and then he says, "Let me never be put to shame." Well, why would he be asking for this never be put to shame when he says, in you, O Lord, I put my trust? He hadn't trusted in God.
Yeah.
And look at what it done to his life.
Right.
And look at what it done to his friend Uriah. He killed his own friend because he was the last in the list of his mighty men, his closest friends. He was willing to, he shacks up with one of his best friends, gets her pregnant, then he has her. Then he tries to get him to sleep with his wife so that he can cover up his sin.
Right.
And then when he wouldn't do it because he showed more integrity than David, he takes the letter to Joab, and Uriah sends that letter to Joab. The letter on it says, when you're in the thick of battle, pull back and Uriah will be killed. So David had done some horrible things.
Yeah.
And so when he says, in you, O Lord, I put my trust, let me never be put to shame, he had experienced a lot of shame.
Yeah.
So when we go through something when we're addicted, you're going to experience shame.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to turn to God. And then he says, incline your ear to me and save me. When you have sinned, you feel the farthest away from God. You feel the farthest, because you are. You are the farthest away. You're lonely. You feel far away from your family. You feel far away from everyone. That's why people withdraw.
Right.
And so the idea is, he says, incline your ear to me. Come back. Come to me.
Right.
Incline your ear to me and save me. Be my strong refuge to which I may resort continually. Someone who is addicted to something is going to need a continual.
Right.
They're going to have to constantly come to God to come through this. This is not just flipping a switch and it's over. It's constant. Right? And he says, be my strong, you've given the commandment to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress, a rock that will never dissolve. He's a rock that will never go away. We might go away from him.
Right.
We've got to strive to come back to him.
The rock can't move.
Right.
Because it's rock.
That's right.
Sits.
That's right. He is the fortress.
Yeah.
And so that passage really does help, where when you're in the middle of struggle, quoting. That's why I quote that passage. That's why I memorize that passage to help me in times of temptation.
One of my favorite sayings is, if you treat everyone as if they're hurting, you're not going to miss by much.
That's a great point.
Because everybody's got something going on in their life that bothers them almost to the point of, they suffer from it. You know, there's loneliness, there's depression, there's whatever.
Yeah.
So if everyone, even the happiest person in your life, if you treat them as if something's hurting them, you're probably going to be right almost every time, because
and it might be something that you have no clue about.
And, because you walk it and you look at them and they're like, that person's got everything's perfect. I mean, look at their life. They're happy all the time. They must have the best life ever, but they don't know what they don't know, because it's something that is being hidden, off in the back.
Right. And that's where the scriptures will also help. As we're going to study this, it will help us. It will hone us as well. The scriptures are what will sharpen us, so that we can make sure that we maintain those fruits of the Spirit. Right. There's nobody who just says, "Well, I have the fruit. I have that fruit." Yeah. What happens when I buy fruit? Every 2 weeks. Yeah. I put it in a bowl. If we don't eat it, what happens?
It's going to go bad.
It starts rotting.
Right.
If I'm not using it, if I'm not maintaining that bowl, that fruit's going to rot.
Right.
And so if we just say, "Well, I got fruit once," I was loving one time.
Yeah.
I was patient one time, but until he said one too many things.
Like that.
So it doesn't work that way. We have to constantly maintain our fruit of the Spirit as well, so that we are that spiritual person. Psalm 141 says, "O Lord, I call upon you. Hasten to me. Give ear to my voice when I call to you. Let my prayer be counted as incense before you, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Do not let my heart incline to any evil, to busy myself with wicked deeds, in company with men who work iniquity, and let me not eat of their delicacies."
Yeah,
eat or smoke or shoot up. I mean, that you could apply that to there. The idea is, that's a prayer that we all need to be praying when it comes to making sure that, God, set a guard over my mouth.
Right.
Help me not to say things. Help me not to ingest things that I don't need to be doing. That was key. I think there's another passage like Psalm 31, 1 through 5 was powerful as well. Says, "In you, O Lord, do I take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me. Incline your ear to me. Rescue me speedily." Sounds a lot like Psalm 71.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
He says, "Be a rock of refuge for me, a strong fortress to save me. For you are my rock and my fortress. And for your name's sake, you lead me and guide me. You take me out of the net they have hidden for me. For you are my refuge. Into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord, faithful God." So if we get, you ever see someone who is focused on drugs, they're going to have a supplier. And I know of people who have had to move because of those individuals who know where they live. Yeah. And you have to get yourself out of that situation. Yeah. God helps you to do that when you pray to Him, but you may have to change address.
Yeah, you can't just say a prayer and it just fixes.
Yeah, prayer doesn't just fix it.
Yeah.
That's why this sounded so similar. Psalm 31, Psalm 71, David constantly said this. Yeah. So David is a constant help for us. And it's interesting, in Psalm 70, we looked at Psalm 71. We know that Psalm 70, it says, "Make haste, O God, to deliver me. O Lord, make haste to help me."
Come quickly, help me. I need it now.
Come quickly.
Yeah, I need your help now.
So God, he recognized that God was the only helper. Yeah. And he's the one that we can rely on.
Well, he was the only help, the only successful help, because there are some people that will try to help and maybe can help to some degree.
Right. But you can't, if you depend on one person to be God for you, nobody's strong enough to handle it. And you will wear out those people that you're trying to help to the point that they can't handle it anymore. And it will literally grind down someone. Yeah. And they might lose sight. And actually, that can discourage you, discourage them.
Right.
You know, no one person was ever intended to be your God.
Yeah.
Because they're not God.
Right.
But they're striving to be God, but they're going to point you to God. They're going to get you to God.
Point you that
but
direction.
They can't be the ones to keep you.
Yeah.
And that's key. Scriptures are what is going to keep you.
You can, it's like farmers saying, lead, cattle to drink, but I can't force them to drink the water.
Yeah.
I can point you in the right direction, but.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember we had horses. I used to try
horses,
to.
I keep saying
yeah,
cattle.
no,
It's
you're
horses.
fine. Cattle too.
Yeah.
But lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. I have done that. I've led a horse to water, and I've thought, you need to drink.
Yeah.
1,800-pound animal, I'm going to make you drink, And I remember actually taking the hold of the bridle and, pulling down and just going, and I remember actually pulling up my whole body. She held me up. I was like, okay, well, this is not helping.
Yeah.
She didn't want to drink. So the idea is we can't force people. That's true. But say they have come to respect an individual. Say they have come to depend on an individual. Well, they can't be. That you might bring them to God, but you can't be the one to keep them there.
Right.
You've got to constantly point them to Scripture. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Don't make statements. Ask questions.
Yeah, it goes back to
and
what
that
we
brings
started.
to that passion.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yep.
fantastic. Well, man, what a
good
great
show
episode
today.
it has
Yeah.
been. I hope you enjoy your Christmas. I know you and your family are going to be out of town this Sunday.
Yep.
For those of you watching and want to join us for worship this Sunday, our associate minister Tim Shoemaker will be preaching the sermon this Sunday. I don't have the topic yet on that, but we'll get that on our Facebook page.
And our preacher
later.
Intern for last summer and this summer is preaching Sunday night, Joshua Dodge.
Josh, that's fantastic.
Yep.
That'll be
He's gonna
great.
do a great job.
He
I'm
will.
excited.
He will. So if you're in town, we'd love to have you here at Deerfoot Church of Christ. We're on Old Springville Road. If you go to deerfootcoc.com, you can go to our website and get all the information on how to contact us. Our morning worship Sunday at 8 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. and then Sunday night at 5 o'clock. We got Bible class Sunday mornings at 9:30 as well. So we'd love for you to have. So hope you enjoy your weekend and Christmas, and we will see you soon.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Thank y'all so much, and have if we don't talk to you before Christmas, have a wonderful Merry Christmas to you. Thanks so much.